Flip, Floss, and Fly, presented by Say It Loud Canada, the ultimate financial literacy program, brought to you by the Black Business and Professional Association and the Donald Reed Estate. Here are your hosts from Flip, Floss, and Fly, Andre Smith, financial literacy expert and poet, Farley Flex, social activist and entertainment trailblazer, and Roderick Brereton, social entrepreneur and conflict management specialist.
Okay, so again, we hope that you are feeling good. Welcome to the 14th edition of Flip, Floss, and Fly. Without further ado, as you know how we always do, we're going to put it on to our financial literacy guru, Andre Smith. Why I say Andre? Like it sounded like it's European for some sort of reason. All right, how you doing today, Andre?
I am great. It's definitely a new day, and I'm always excited to be here to talk about financial literacy. And I'm actually going to share a couple conversations I had with two people this week. And so the first one, I was talking to this, one of the kids that I mentor. He's 18, and so I was asking him, like, how can I put the one question to him: how can I reach more youth of color with financial literacy? Because like talking about money in the community is it's taboo, right? And he turned to me and said, Andre, the best way to reach the community is the same way how you reach me, right? Just be yourself. Try not to look down on people and whatnot. And so that gave me a lot of inspiration. And I actually, I value that conversation because that's one of the things that, as service providers, I think sometimes how we reach people, it tends to be misaligned. And I think that's one thing to hold myself to account, just to make sure that the people that I'm trying to reach, that I understand them. So that was definitely one of the most important conversations of the week for me. The other one was, I was talking to this other Jamaican kid, just moved to Canada 2 years ago. And I went through a session with him and look over his finances and, where he's at in terms of his understanding of how things work. And, like I look at his situation and it reminded me of when I first moved here, why I struggled, right? And the why I struggled was evident in the choices that he was making. And so it goes back to why this work is important, right? The financial literacy. It's something that it's talked about often, but we don't, there's not a lot of programs out there that are tailored to our communities. So it tells me that the work that we're doing is indeed great work. Before I go into any introduction or anything else, I'll tell everybody, I'm a bit sleepy, so I need some Irie to wake me up. Like I can't go on without my Irie. My morning Irie is what gives me the drive and the energy to go forward. So give me some energy by putting some Irie in the chat box. All right, and I want to put it to you guys, ladies and gentlemen. It's week 14. How are you feeling? Right? Is it a new day? Do you feel the growth, the vibe, and the energy and the passion that we are bringing through these sessions? Can I get some reaction? All right. So for those joining for the first time, again, I'm Andre Smith. I'm from Jamaica, graduate of York University, and I founded this program called Flip and Floss, right? Because of the tabooness of financial literacy in the community and the disconnect that exists. I wanted to reach people, all right? So I come up with Flip and Floss, which is future leaders obtaining sufficient skills financial literacy and investor program and future leaders obtaining sufficient skills. We're actually in the process of gathering information from people through a survey just to get a better understanding as to how we can reach people, right? Because I want to make sure that at the end of the day, people are actually learning and are able to implement these things in their lives. I'm not sure if Marlene is here with us today, but she shared in the previous session that she implemented one of the things she learned, and she's already started to make back some money that she was paying out. So that's some good news there, all right? So this week, like I said, it's week 14. Before we get into the discussion, I have a trivia question here for you guys. So what is a line of credit? So what is a line of credit? What steps can an individual take to manage their debt? So for those joining for the first time, the process is you turn on your video, unmute yourself, and then state your name, where you're participating from, and then answer the question, okay? So what is a line of credit, and what steps can an individual take to manage their debt?
And as you know, for our trivia, for the person who answers the trivia, oh, we got Monica already.
Yeah, so I do not remember what's a line of credit, but I remember the steps to get out of debt. You can make a budget, you can check your credit health. So like, what's your credit score? Is it closer to 300 or 900? That's if you're like excellent. You can map out a plan. So you can go see an expert and check the terms and conditions with that said expert just to see what steps can you take to get out of credit. Then you want to take control and take action. That requires a lot of discipline because, well, oftentimes it's a lack of discipline or just hard situations that get you in debt. And then you want to stretch your dollars. So you want to cut where you can, reduce house-related expenses like insurance, mortgage, if possible, electricity, if you use Bell, that. Try to call them and not get a more expensive one at the end, even if you call them with the intention of lowering your prices. And then once you have a debt management strategy, plan for the unexpected expenses. So like if you lose your job, if you have an accident, gas, and any big purchases. So a house, a car, appliances. If you're planning on having a kid, that's also a big expense. And those were the steps out of debt. But I know there's also 2 methods to pay off your debt, but they're not in the steps. It's the snowball debt. So that's when you pay like the smallest debt and then you grow. Once you pay the smallest one, you get that like, yes. And then you go on to the other one, yes, and the other one. And then there's the avalanche method, which is you pay off the big debt, which is going to give you big interest. And you pay that one off first, and then you just go downwards. So it's just one is the opposite of the other, but at the end of the day, you're paying off your debt. So you choose your tactic.
That's excellent, Monica. Actually, I might have to ask you to take over these sessions going forward. That's pretty good. Those are some incredible steps that you've listed. My question to you is, have you implemented, I heard you talk about a budget. Have you taken any steps to create a budget, or did you already have a budget in place prior to Flip and Floss?
So I don't have a budget per se, but I try to like, if I spend on something, if I go to the restaurant, which I can't anymore, but I used to, if I buy, I don't know, candy, clothes, you put it down because and then I'm going to use that because I don't have enough because I never did that before. So I just need to know how much I spend before I can even do a budget. Because I need to know like my spending habits.
Right.
Yeah, that's the word.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Anyone else wanted to add? So Monica, you're going to be getting that $25 card. So if you haven't, send your information to
I already got it. So somebody else.
That's for another one. This is for today. So you're participating today again. So you should be getting another card.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you don't want it, you can send it my way.
I'll take it.
I'd be happy to use it.
You're gonna have to make a budget with all the money you're making from Flip.
Right? No, tell your friend. I made that's $50 from Flip and Floss.
I told my friends.
Help a brother by sending that $25 card my way.
All right.
Good job, Monica. Thank you, dear. Thank you for that. All right. So we're going to talk about business today and in a few of the future sessions, right? Because one of the things that irks me in the community is that I always hear certain things and it's echoed Black people business this, Black people business that, terrible customer service, terrible that, right? It's always about the faults, right? And I've also seen some of the challenges firsthand as to why, some of, the Black businesses struggle. So it's important that for us, as part of financial literacy, it's important to understand on an individual level what personal finance means, but it's also important for us as aspiring, business owners to understand how to effectively operate a business. Okay, so I want this to be a discussion. So feel free to chime in, raise your hand. Farley and Roderick, they're monitoring actively. If we don't identify you, feel free to come on and just say your name and where you're participating from, and just get into what you want to talk about. But we want to have a discussion. And I see most people showing their faces, so that's really good. We're actually coming a far way, so that's good. I love that we are learning and growing together. So here's a quick disclaimer. So this presentation is not, and nothing in it should be construed as an offer, invitation, or recommendation in respect of a company's credit facilities or any of the company's securities, or an offer, invitation, or recommendation to sell, or solicitation of an offer to buy the facilities or any of a company's securities in any jurisdiction. Neither this presentation nor anything in it shall form the basis of a contract or commitment. This presentation is not intended to be relied upon as advice to investors or potential investors, and does not take into account the investment objectives, financial situation, or needs of any investor. All investors should consider such factors in consultation with a professional advisor of their choosing when deciding if an investment is appropriate. By participating in this session, attendees agree to indemnify and hold harmless Andre Smith, Flip and Floss, Easy Solutions Tax and Consulting Services, Urban Res, the BBPA, and its partners of any and all liabilities or legal proceeding. So let's get it jiggy. All right. So flashback Saturday.
Sorry, Andre.
Yep.
And I just wanted to plant a seed from early. The word of the day from the fly section of this session is communication. And as Farley will tell you, our definition of communication from the Urban Res side of things is message sent,
message received,
and message understood. Okay, we're gonna say that one more time. Our definition of communication, and we want you to technically write this down. Message sent,
message received,
and message understood. Communication is one of those important, integral principles that we often take for granted. And conflict and misunderstanding often is the root of miscommunication. Okay, so to mitigate miscommunication and obviously to try to eradicate conflict, even though that will be impossible, we want to make communication clear and concise so that our message is sent, our message is received, and most of all, our message is understood. So when we are communicating with you on a weekly basis, we are hoping that our message is understood at the end of the day so that you can also communicate effectively with those around you. So just bear that in mind when we're doing this, and we will have some points of intersection where we can ask in terms of the communication what was understood after it was received.
Just a quick insertion there, Rod. Leighton has advised that he has not yet received his gift cards. If you could give him an update on that.
Yeah, if Leighton could please, in the chat, share with me just his information, his contact information. I don't think I got that down before. Again, I've sent out all the other ones, and the people from last week should be getting those within the next couple of days. So I've got Monica's information from today, but Leighton, please share in the private chat with me your information, and we'll get that off to you today. All right?
And folks, be mindful that you can also save the chat. I don't know if people fully realize that. you can save the chat during these sessions as well, if case somebody provides you some information or anything that you want to retain. And sometimes I know we end the call and people are like, oh man, I didn't write that down. So make sure you save the chat at some point in the session. The other thing is just a quick reminder that, we're looking at this group, cooperative investment model that Mr. Smith, Andre Smith, will be managing. So let's do our best and reach our fullest potential here on these sessions so that we can all participate and grow together. So we'll be investing on your behalf. I believe it's $50 a person. Is that what we said?
Yep. I mean, I guess we're letting the cat out the bag because we didn't let them know earlier, but.
Okay. Yeah, we did. No, I said it last week. week.
Farley, just on the tongue slip.
Pardon me?
I don't think we
Just on the tongue slip.
Yeah, I don't think we said what we're going to be, how much we'd be giving them, but.
Okay, good. Well, then now you know.
No,
right?
you know, just, you know,
but
Jamaica
sorry,
use them tongue slip to take it back.
One quick thing. So understand that we're talking about working as a cooperative in terms of all of us pooling our resources together. I could swear, maybe I didn't say the amount, but I did talk about it.
You did say the amount, Farley.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to have a fellow
Centurion.
elder.
That's what the senior.
I know I said the amount.
Okay.
So that times the amount of, we want to increase the amount of participants, therefore the amount of that we invest will also increase, and then the reward will be collectively more rewarding for all. So, but remember, the criteria is your participation, your visual presence, right? And participation in the chat, responding to questions, asking questions, etc. It's about your involvement is what determines your qualification for the overall plan here. Right now we have, I believe it's 33 people participating. So we want to get that number up to our average, which I believe is somewhere in the 70s, Rod, maybe?
Yeah, we've gone as high as 88, I believe.
Right,
We usually kind of hover around.
So our average?
45, 50. Yeah.
Okay, right. So yeah, so remember, tell a friend to tell a friend, as Rod always says. And the more we grow, the more we know, and the more we'll show. Remember that.
All right. Get that
right.
down. Rhymes.
That from the lyricist.
Andre, I just let you do your poems. I don't know, you're falling off.
Yeah, man, I'm going to drop one poem, man. Hold on, man. That's nothing. My poem soon drop. So, for those who are talking about them, a patois and patois, so we drop a little patois in the presentation, yeah? Wadi Pre, ready for flashback with me? So, for those who don't understand patois, or those who are patois, this is just pretty much saying, what's up? Are you ready to do a flashback with me? All right, so get your patois skills up by taking a picture of that so you can go home and practice it. All right, so let's do a quick recap. So this recap actually is inspired by, I think one of our participants, she's here with us because she had questions about the home buying process. So I wanted to just do like a quick highlight. I don't remember which week we talked about this, but I just thought it was important to just review some of the key takeaways from this presentation. So in terms of buying a house, so there are some strict rules and criteria that you need to meet in order to be pre-qualified, right? And pre-qualification is the first step, but understand that a pre-qualification doesn't necessarily mean that you will get the mortgage, right? It just helps the lender to determine whether or not you are able to move forward in that process. One of the things that I came across is in my readings recently is that before you actually make any commitment, right? So if you're buying a house and you get a pre-qualification, before you make any firm offers, it's important that you get a conditional offer from the financial institution at a minimum, right? So do not make any firm offers until you get a conditional offer from the financial institution, because that's more carries more weight, right? And so you don't want to lose your down payment in the process because you don't have a conditional offer, right? So your real estate agent will walk you through this, and a good agent will explain the process to you, right?
I think we have a question here, Andre.
Yeah, let me see.
I don't know if it was in the chat because I'll ask the question anyways. What's an additional offer? Is it just Another
Additional,
offer.
conditional offer?
Conditional.
Additional.
Conditional.
Ooh, okay.
Conditional, yeah. So
You
you want me
understand
to
what that
explain a
means?
conditional offer?
Please.
Sure. So a conditional offer is just pretty much saying that, like you make that offer, right? You're saying, I want to buy, but you are promising to sell me on the basis that you give me time to meet these things first, right? So some of those things could be getting approval for a mortgage,
That's the number one thing.
or getting a home inspection done to the property,
Mhm.
right? So it's like you're saying, I want to buy, but you as the seller agree to give me an offer providing that I meet these things first. If I don't meet these things, then we're not moving forward with the buying process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
A
want to
little.
buy, but it depends.
What's that, Michael?
I
You
would
say,
just say
Michael?
that I want to buy or sell, but it depends.
It depends, right?
Basically, exactly.
Depends on something. All right. So as of July 1st, 2020, the criteria is changed, and I guess that's not guess, but it is in response to the pandemic because the government is expecting more people to lose their job, which affects people's inability to repay their mortgage. So they made the rules tighter than before. So one of the criteria is the debt to income ratio, right? So 35% of gross income on housing. So they're gonna look at your current debt load. So whatever it is that your rental payment or your mortgage payment is going to be, it's supposed to be 35% of gross income. So if you're making $100,000 as a household, then 35% of that, aka 35,000, should be going toward housing, right? If more than 35% is going toward housing, it means that you wouldn't meet this condition or this requirement, right? So you want to look at that. And 42% on loans. So let's say you have a line of credit of $10,000, right? And just for Monica, I believe, so Monica didn't remember what a line of credit is. So a line of credit is a type of loan from the bank, right? And it carries a lower interest rate. Usually there's no payment on the line of credit unless you use it, right? And they have different types of line of credit. So it's just really a loan, a lower interest loan.
But you do pay the interest on it though.
You pay the interest only when you use it, on what you use. So if you have a line of credit of, let's say $10,000 and you use 1,000, there's only interest on the 1,000, not the full 10,000. So it's only on what you use.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So let's say you have that 10,000 line of credit and you've used $5,000 off the line of credit. So when you actually go to get this pre-approval, they're gonna look at your usage. So if you're using 5,000 off the 10,000 line of credit, that's gonna be 50%, right? So you wouldn't again meet that criteria. So you wanna look at your gross income and how much you spend on housing, how much you're spending on loan. So it should be 35% on housing, 42% on loan. They've increased the credit score so from 660 to 680, right? So you want to make sure that before you go and get a pre-approval, that your credit score is about 680. Again, you can check your credit score on platforms such as Borrowell, Credit Karma for free. And some of the financial institutions, you can actually check your credit score there as well for free. So they, I think when you log into your online banking, somewhere on the right, it will say, check my credit score, right? And you can get your credit score there. The credit score is a measure of your credit worthiness. So how likely are you to repay your loan? How responsible are you as an individual? So that's really what it measures. And that amount needs to be 680 or higher. All right, we have a question from Tatanisha. Go ahead, Tatanisha.
Yeah, thank you. Hi. I've had a lot of questions about homeownership, and a few things have come up, and I'd love it if you could explain further. The first thing is about your student loans being good debt and what that means when people say that. And the second thing is when you're checking your credit score, I understand it as you have a soft check versus another type of check that might impact your credit score. I understand that, but I'm not sure if everyone does. So I think it might be a helpful thing for people to know.
Of course, those are two good points. And you know what? Sorry, remind me of the name again. Tatanisha, is that it? I actually had this discussion, the very first one, about the student loan and why it's considered a good debt. So here's the thing, and I'll tell you why it's considered a good debt first, but then I'll tell you also that it can easily become a bad debt. So, all right, like any of the good debts can become a bad debt. So a good debt is a type of debt that is expected to produce a return, right? Generally speaking, an investment in yourself, right? Student loan to invest in yourself, it creates the possibility that you'll earn higher income in the future, right? So there's that possibility that because you're more educated, that you're going to be making more. So that's the assumption, right? So that's why it's considered a good debt. So any debt that produces a return, generally speaking, is considered a good debt. However, a good debt can become a bad debt. So a student loan could potentially become a bad debt. So it's one of those things that you have to look at individual scenario. So let's say, that person, and one of the more rigorous example that I use to demonstrate this, let's say this person has an underlying factor that may prevent their ability to earn income. So let's say I have a criminal conviction and I have tried extensively to get a job, right? But I can't get a job because of that criminal conviction. I go and I say, okay, maybe if I improve my academics, I could potentially get hired. So I take out a $50,000 loan and I get this qualification, right? And then I still can't get a job because the conviction is there. So now I can't repay that student loan, right? So that creates a situation where I'm struggling and there's interest accruing and it's not producing a return. I think it's one of those things that has to be assessed on the individual level to see what their circumstances are. But generally speaking, it is expected to produce a return on investment. So that's why it falls more on the good debt. The same with mortgage, right? A mortgage is expected to be a good debt, but an individual can easily make a mortgage a bad debt because they constantly remortgage their house, or they're not able to pay their house, they're constantly refinancing, and there's no return. So it's how you're using those two types of debt can easily push them over on the bad side or the good side. Okay, but generally speaking, they are on the good side. All right, and then the second point that you raised about the hard check versus the soft check. And that's correct. So there are two types. So a hard check means that when you do a credit check, it will have an impact on your credit score. So generally speaking, when you go to the lender to apply for a credit product, that's considered a hard check. So let's say I were to go to one of the brand name, like any store, like a clothing store or a appliance place, and I wanted to get one of their store credit card. They are going to do a credit check to see if I'm worthy enough to get that card. So because I am going in to apply for that product, that is considered a hard check. All right. So a hard check really is when you go to apply for that product and the institution does a background check on your credit. A soft inquiry, on the other hand, is where the lender or the institution does the check behind the background, right? So they are looking at you as a customer or a client, whatever you want to call it, and they're saying, this person is as a good credit score, they've managed their finances well, they're doing good, and they do a check behind the scene and then make an offer to you. So sometimes you log into your online banking and you say, hey, you're pre-approved for a $1,000 increase. If you accept that increase, it won't have an impact. So soft inquiries usually don't have not usually, they don't have an impact on your credit score, right? But that's when the lender, does this search behind the scene. Hopefully I bring some clarification there to your question, Tatanisha.
Andre?
Yes, Michael.
I just wanted to, as a rule of thumb, piggyback on your answer to your first question, about the good debt and the bad debt. As a rule of thumb, debt that is used for consumption purposes tend to be the bad debt.
The bad debt.
While debt that is used for investment purposes tend to be the good debt. You know, so if you borrow money that will generate returns and pay for itself down the road, generally it's considered a good debt. But if you borrow it just to bling and, you know, to do consumption type stuff, which is really just a straight expense, it tends to end up being a not so good debt.
That's a great clarification. Thank you, Michael.
All right. So the other thing that is needed here, so other than the credit score, so the down payment, so you have to come up with that down payment. So a good place to start is to figure out the price of the property that you're buying, right? So if you're buying a $600,000 house, then you know it's 5% off that property. That's the minimum down payment. However, there's a slight change. I think this happened the same time the stress test came about. So what the government said is that for the down payment, if you're buying a property that's over $500,000, it's 5% of the first $500,000 and then 10% thereafter. So if you're buying a property for $600,000, then it's 5% of the $500,000 and then 10% of the excess. And the excess would be the $100,000. So it'd be 10% on the $100,000. So it'd be 5% on 500 plus 10% on the 100,000. And that would be your minimum down payment that is required. If you're buying an investment property, the minimum down payment required is 20%, right? There's no option similar to when you're buying a principal residence. And a principal residence is where you're going to be living with yourself or your family. All right. All right, so this one is also important, an important change. So no more borrowed down payment. So what used to happen before is that you could potentially use your line of credit and use that as toward your down payment for the house. So let's say you wanted to buy a $500 property and you are short by 10 grand. You could have used your line of credit to put toward the down payment. So that has changed again because of COVID, right? So you can't use loan to pay down on the down payment. However, you can get a gift letter from a close family member like your mom or your dad or your grandparents that confirms that they're giving you a certain amount, right? And they don't question where that amount comes from, in the sense that if that grandparent decide to take the loan, so let's say you can't take the loan, but your grandparents want to, and I'm not giving you advice here, I'm just explaining. But if you have your 10,000 line of credit and your mom have a 10,000 line of credit, your mom can give you a gift letter saying that I'm giving you 10 grand from that line of credit, or just 10 grand, so to speak, from wherever, and just give you that letter confirming the gift. And the gift shouldn't be repaid. So it's coming from a loan in the sense, but it's coming as a gift through the parent. And the loan should not be repaid, right? They require that it shouldn't be a loan that has to be repaid, or a gift that has to be repaid. All right, so, and then the mortgage stress test. So I'm going to talk about this in the other slide. So the other requirement is the mortgage stress test that, like I said, I'll talk about in the other slide. And then other is income, right? So you have to verify your income. And I'll tell you, for those who've never gone through the home buying process, it's a pretty rigorous process. So be prepared to show all your income for the past 90 days, right? They're going to ask you for a lot of documents, ask you for your bank account. So you literally have to be able to trace the source of where the money is coming from for the past 90 days. So you definitely want to plan in advance, because if at some point during that home buying process, you're not able to fulfill your end of the obligation, you could end up losing your down payment. So you definitely want to plan ahead, plan, and make sure that you have everything before you jump into that process. All right?
A quick question there, Andre, before you move on.
Sure.
Has there been a change in the use of your RSP for original home buying?
No, the only change, and it wasn't recent, is the increase in the amount that you can withdraw to $35,000. And that's not a recent change, but no other changes. So you can still use your RSP. I think I have that in a future slide, but you can withdraw from your RSP as well to come up with the down payment, right? So if you have contributed to your RSP, and so for those who don't know what RSP is, it's the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, right? So you can contribute to this plan, right? And what it does, it gives you a tax deferral when you contribute. So a tax deferral meaning that the government gives you a portion of the taxes you paid through whatever, through income or employment, they give you a portion back today. And then in the future, when you withdraw that money, the government will take tax on it. So it's a tax deferral plan, really. And the purpose of the plan is to save toward retirement, right? So the government, this is a very restricted plan. And so what the government says, the only scenarios under which a person can withdraw from the plan is through, if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're using the funds for the lifelong education, lifelong learning, right? So if you want to go back to upgrade your education. So those are the only two ways you can withdraw from this RRSP without penalty. And so that is one of the ways that you can use to come up with a down payment. And I'll give you a strategy in the future slide on the RRSP method.
Andre, I stepped away for a second, but I don't know if you guys answered Leighton's question. He was told that when there's a check on your credit, when you own a home, a hard check is done, then your credit score would go down by 30 points. Why is this so?
Good question, Leighton. You know, it's a concept that I don't get. So like any kind of hard check that goes on your credit report, it lowers your score, right? Because I guess what they're trying to say is that the fact that you're looking for credit, it might mean that you're in a financial, situation. It honestly, it doesn't make sense, but it's their method of calculating the score. I personally don't know the reasoning behind it. I don't know if Michael or anyone here knows the reasoning behind it, but any type of hard check, it will go against your score because it is telling the institutions that you are, you might be having difficulties, I guess, like with whatever existing, your finances. So you're relying on credit, right? It doesn't really make sense to me. But the amount, I don't know the amount off the top of my head if it's a 30 point, but it's an easily recoverable amount. Like it will go back up within no time. It's not one of those factors that takes a long time to recover from. So in about 6 months or probably less, the score will go back up.
Yeah, it's not like bankruptcy or anything like that.
Right.
I think the other thing too, you mentioned already that you want to have a base credit of 680. And if you're well above that, that's even if it's 30 points. I don't think it's necessarily that much, but if you're well enough above the threshold, that 30 will be inconsequential anyway.
Right, exactly.
Like if you have a score of 780 and you go down to 750, it's not gonna affect you in any major way. Right.
When it comes to and this was my wife and I, we usually compare our credit score, and I used to think that her score was better than mine when I never knew about scores because she had like close to the highest score possible. But it's not like in a university where you have a A+ versus a A. In the credit world, once you have that 680, you're good, to be honest, right? So it's slightly different, even though somebody might have an 800 versus me having 700. Another thing I'll tell you about the credit check. So if you were to do multiple pre-approvals, those pre-approvals can only affect your score once for the home buying, right? So let's say you go to bank A and they do a credit check, and then you go to bank B and they do another credit check. If you do it, those checks, I believe is in 120 days or 90 days. If you do it within that period, it can only affect your score once. However, with other credit products, if it's a credit card and you go to company A and you do a check, and then you go to company B and you do a check, both those checks will have different impact on your score. All right. So, but for mortgage, it's different. It can only affect your score once.
We have another question from the chat there, Andre.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody has asked if they check their credit score on one of the popular sites that you can do it by yourself, like Credit Karma. Is that considered a hard or a soft check?
That would be soft. Farley, it seems like you want to take this question. Farley's an expert now.
No, I just think that would be a very soft check. Like,
yeah, that's very soft.
That's why those services are effective and doing well, is because people are now more credit aware, and you can check your credit 20 times a day if you want, on something like Credit Karma or any of those. So that would be a very soft check.
And just to let people know, that is a free service. So if you wanted to check that out, you can do so.
Yeah, and you can get notification too. So I set up notification on mine. So any changes, they'll notify me. So if there's a new credit product or a new inquiry, I get an email. So let's keep in mind, when you're trying to differentiate between hard and soft, just ask yourself the question, did I go to somebody for credit, right? Or that person came to me, right? So if you go to somebody for credit, it's hard, right? If I didn't go to anybody for anything, then it's soft. Right. All right. So on the discuss, do we have any more questions there in the chat, Roderick?
That's it. That's it for now.
That's it for now. Okay. Perfect. All right. So what is a stress test? So when I first talked about this in the session, what the question that came up is how do I pass the test? Well, it's not like an actual written test, right? So the mortgage stress test is just requires the bank to check that the borrower can still make their payment at a rate that's higher than they actually pay. So I brought in the definition here just for clarity, right? So it's when you go into the bank, if the bank's rate is 1%, then the government of Canada creates a qualifying rate that says, okay, even if it's 1%, you have to be able to qualify at 4% or 3%. So what that is doing is the government is saying that they want you to be able to afford a mortgage should the situation changes, should the interest rate goes up. So that's what the stress test is. So they want to make sure that you can make the payments at the current rate that you're qualifying at, as well as if there's a rate increase by a certain amount, you can still afford those payments, right? So just so that everybody understands. So it's not like a written test. I know, like yourself, I'm afraid of tests. So don't get panicked there. You won't be doing a test that disqualifies you from ever getting a mortgage. All right, so there's an example here if you want clarification. So, let's say the best rate rate in Canada is 2.49%, and bank's qualifying rate is 4.79. So even if you qualify for the lowest rate, your bank will run affordability calculation at 2 rates. So they will make sure you can afford it at the rate that you qualify, which is 2.49, as well as the 4.79%. So you have to be able to meet both of those to be able to qualify for the mortgage. Any question on stress tests or any of the requirements to be able to qualify for a mortgage?
Yeah, I had another question.
Sure.
This is Jerome. So for me, it's about the first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you invested in buying a property on your own, and then you use first-time home buyers, and then now you want to buy a property, for example, with your girl or something, or with your partner, and you're going to use.
You froze there.
You froze up there, Jerome, for 2 seconds, brother.
Is that Calgary weather?
Come back.
You froze just now, Jerome.
You in Edmonton or Calgary?
He's another part. Say when you're wanting to buy
with your girlfriend,
with your partner, you froze up after that.
Okay, sorry. So you used your first-time home buyers to buy your first property, and then that's now going to be an investment property, and then now you're looking to purchase another property with your partner, and she's never used her first-time home buyers. Can you leverage that first-time home buyers for the second property? And then obviously you can't use yours. You
know what I love with one of the interesting things that I love with the community is that we always, and it's learning for me too, is like and it's good, Jerome, I think just like you, we always look for those potential loopholes. But you know what, the government is usually ahead of us. So what happens is because you've already used it, right, and you wouldn't be able to use it again to say we're in a relationship and she hasn't used hers, so I'm now gonna use that home buying, right? So it doesn't work that way. If she were to buy it before, right? So I don't know if it's and there are two scenarios. Let's say it's not a relationship that's recognized. So let's start there. And what I mean by a relationship that's recognized, it's not a common law relationship or a marriage, right? If it is a relationship that doesn't meet one of those criteria, then if she goes out and she buys that property separately, right, and then both of you come together, so both of you can use it, that first-time home buyers. But if it's a relationship that's recognized, such as common law or marriage, you can't then say, me, myself, bought this property and then my common law partner buys another property. So it doesn't work that way. It's either of you or together use the first-time home buyers plan. However, in a breakdown situation, I think the first-time home buyer criteria, I believe it's 4 years or 5 years, I can't remember, but it's a 4 or 5 year time span. So let's say you bought the first property today, and 5 years or 6 years later, there's a breakdown in the relationship. Both of you can now use the first-time home buyers plan again.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. The other thing that this kind of dovetails into, Andre, is from a cultural standpoint, there are many cultures, I guess I could say maybe Asian, South Asian, etc., just to be a little more specific, that you're talking about loopholes, but one of the very common practices is for multiple, whether it be family members or couples, to cohabitate in a residence. One person pays the mortgage. Well, there's a couple of things they do. One person might pay the mortgage, right, while the other people are saving, so they can end up buying their own home. And obviously, each of them would use first-time home buyers.
First-time home buyers, right.
Or the other thing is to, excuse me, these are mechanisms to get ahead as a collective. Again, very cooperative in its nature as far as cooperative economics. And the other thing they might do is where they pay rent in cycles. So if there are 3 couples living in the same domicile, one would pay the rent, let's say in January, right? And the other 2 would save their money until their turn to pay the rent comes up, and they obviously invest or keep their money in a higher interest-bearing type account, so that they're helping each other get ahead. We as a people generally, and I'm being general, not specific, don't get into these habits because we don't like to sacrifice. And we talked last week about deferred gratification, right? So deferred gratification is, instead of having that nice ride, right, or that nice outfit for the Caravana Fête, right, we sometimes lose focus and don't sacrifice or invest in ourselves in this capacity. So again, some of the other cultures that don't have issues cohabitating, like several people under one roof and
right,
working cooperatively to mitigate personal expenses, right? That's something young people might want to think about, okay?
So we also had a question from the chat. So just to clarify, due to COVID, we can no longer use a pre-existing line of credit to pay forward closing costs?
No, not the closing costs, to pre-qualify. So you can still use the line of credit to pay for closing costs. But remember, before you even reach the closing cost payment, you have to be able to qualify that for the mortgage, and line of credit is not factored into being qualified.
Okay.
But once you get to that point, you can still use your line of credit to pay. Once you meet the requirements and you get to paying closing costs, you can use your line of credit to pay for the closing costs.
Okay, great.
All right. So in terms of down payment strategy, so these are like day-to-day things that you can make some adjustment on, and we've talked about investment. So you can transfer a fixed amount into a special savings account, and what Farley just mentioned, cooperative economics. So more people coming under one roof to bring down the monthly expenses for each person. And if you think about a fixed cost, right? And this is for me talking from my accounting background. So if you have, let's say you're using your fixed cost, my fixed cost per month here, which is my mortgage, right? This is how fixed costs work. So fixed cost generally is fixed, but it can vary over time for each person based on the level of production. So that's what I learned in accounting. So how can we put this into cooperative economics is what Farley just highlighted. The rent is $2,000 per month, but I bring in 4 family members or 5. So instead of me, I'm the only one paying the $2,000. Each person takes a portion, so that changes that fixed cost. So the amount that I put into fixed cost goes down based on the output level, and the output level meaning more people, which is cooperative economics, which is a really good way to come up with down payment. Even if you're renting, right? I'm gonna tell you this. Yeah, for me coming from the Caribbean, when I move here, my thing is that they want my own place. I'm not gonna tell you, but they want my own space. I'm hearing that all the time. I want my own space, right? So you're gonna get a 2-bedroom apartment or whatever, and you have a nice fancy room set up so people can come over and see the fancy room. No, man, take the room, rent it out to somebody and lower your costs, and so that you can ultimately buy up your own place, right? Skip vacation, so don't take as many vacations, lower your expenses, reduce high interest rate debt, and I'll tell you, interest rate is one of the things that we keep overlooking.
Now you frozen there, Andre. A little bit of a technical glitch.
So, well, we have an opportunity here to, I guess, just further emphasize certain things. Some element of strategic sacrifice. And when I say strategic, it's intentional. You know that the sacrifice you're making is going to bring a better outcome down the road, which goes back to the deferred gratification. Not to sound like a broken record, but that's what we have to think about, is how are we preparing for the future, right? So for you younger folks especially, for everyone, but younger folks especially, you have a road ahead. You're taking care of your health. You're taking care of your financial well-being. Yeah, a couple of sacrifices that are really technically investments, not sacrifices, are very, very beneficial to your long-term goals, right? So again, as Rod always says, small steps result in big moves, right?
And I think it's also a great place now to incorporate how communication plays into this whole dynamic.
Absolutely.
Right? Without positive communication strategies, it's going to be impossible to technically even live with, 2 relatives as opposed to, 6 or 7, right? So I think that's one of the actual integral principles in our communities that has been disrupted in the sense of our positive communication strategy. And we've got to revert back to it. We've got to go look for it, and we've got to unearth it, so that we're able to communicate effectively and efficiently, so that we can have that goal, that our objectives on the table, so that we can state how we're going to reach it and how collectively we're going to accomplish this, so that, you can get a house, you can get a house, you can get a house, and this is how we're going to do it. And as we talked about in previous sessions, the planning, it's so key in our success. And I'll say it again, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we have to make plans that are going to see our steps, that roadmap to where we ultimately want to end up, our destination. So, that communication, again, it's key. And if we don't have a positive communication strategy within our households or within our settings or environments at this point in time, I would highly recommend that you investigate or you inquire, do some research on how you can improve your communication strategies. And then again, that's something that Farley and I can also help you with, in that sense of helping, have something that's going to be not just efficient, but feasible and viable to get to where you need. I think Andre's back with us, so.
Yeah, just one quick thing before Andre resumes is that 2 quick things. Rod used a term there, investigate. I love words. That's one of my passions. And when I hear a word that has the same root as another word, look, anybody ever think about the correlation between investigate and invest or investment? Think about that. There's a direct correlation for a reason. You don't have to study Latin to recognize that. The other thing I was going to say is that from an anti-Black racism standpoint, I want you guys to know that the governments in the Western Hemisphere, namely the United States and Canada, discourage cooperative economics for minority groups. They discourage it. Reason being, it empowers, it brings wealth to the community, and it brings a sense of independence. So whatever, generally, if you believe that anti-Black racism exists, right, those who perpetuate it would be offering you guidance and advice that obviously is not in your best interest to some extent. You have to, again, do your own investigation, but understand that the communities that generally practice cooperative economics have a greater sense of independence and self-reliance, right, than communities that don't. So if you look at the Jewish communities, the South Asian communities, the Asian communities, they're far more independent than we are as Black people. $1 stays in our community for 6 hours, whereas it stays in the Chinese community now for 30 days, South Asian for 26 days, and Jewish for 24 days. $1 stays in our community for 6 hours. So please do the math.
Farley, as
Yes,
you
Mike.
mentioned that, a lot of times the key point that they tend to raise about not doing cooperative, they focus on this interest.
Yep.
And we have to understand that. I always say this when I make presentation or make a contribution. Remember the business model that we're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on interest for giving, interest for receiving. And there's nothing wrong with it if that's the model that you work with. But when you talk about the cooperative model, it's a larger issue than just give me $1 and I give you $1.10 in return.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry about the interruption there. This Wi-Fi, I'm definitely gonna have to change it. It's just not good. But this takes us into the next part of the discussion.
Taking over from Michael.
Yeah, I've taken over Michael, but yeah, I'm gonna have to change the provider. This one is awful. But that takes us into the next part of the discussion, right? About supporting Black business and making the money stay in the community longer. And we've heard about the Buy Black movement, right? And that Buy Black movement is about buying Black, supporting Black advertising, supporting Black suppliers, right? So all the way in the supply chain. And so one of the important things to bring some context, and I think Michael, Farley, and Roderick does a good job at this each week, is to bring us back in time to understand where these things come from, right? And so that we can know how to move forward. And I've always been, right? Anyone can tell you, I've always been an advocate for buying Black, and it's not even since I started doing Flip and Floss. It's just ever since I've known myself, right, to support Black businesses. And I'll tell you this: some of the things that I see, and I want it to end, is the justification of why we don't support Black businesses. And I'll give you a primary example. I don't buy from Black restaurants because customer service is poor, or I don't buy from Black this because they don't have a debit machine, or somebody at the front is this and that. And every time somebody say that to me, I ask the question: have you ever gone to the owner and make a complaint and tell that owner or show that owner how they can improve upon the service? Right. 9 times out of 10, they haven't.
Right.
Right.
But
you
cannot give up.
And I think also, and just in terms of wording, it's how we communicate that.
Right.
If we're making a complaint, usually people are going to be defensive and have their backs up, and they'll be ready for the fight. Right. But if we're making a positive suggestion, or we're critiquing constructively, it makes the world of a difference, because, I could go to a restaurant or a business and give them some just advice or a suggestion, and they could take it not offensively, right? And they could use that to better their business. But I think, again, we always have to think about our method of communication. Is it effective? Right. Are we being, accusatory? Are we being, defamatory? We just got to make sure that we're coming on a perspective of and visioning of what we're going to be achieving and accomplishing, as opposed to, tearing down. And a lot of times our community is expecting to fight. I think that's one thing we also have to recognize. Yep. But when we're not going with that fire, we're going with water, or we're going with, that olive branch or that mango branch Farley always talks about, in terms of peace and growth and again, moving the community forward. It's a different zone. We're operating on a different fuel.
So somebody mentioned in the chat, how do we educate our community around making sure that basic needs are met based on Maslow's theory? If our basic needs are met, you can then pivot and invest and grow your money. Absolutely correct. But the key to making sure our collective needs are met is to perform or behave in a collective manner. Excuse me. When I was in Sierra Leone in Africa, we went to an orphanage for youth whose parents had died from AIDS. There were about maybe 150 youth, and we got there at about 6:30 in the morning at the break of dawn. And when we were about maybe 100 or maybe 150 meters from the compound, we heard singing. Right, it's at 6:30 in the morning, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. And as we got closer, the singing obviously got louder. And when we got there, the children were waiting to greet us because they knew we were coming. And they were singing songs of greeting songs, I guess you could call them, in their tribal local language. And when we got to the point of breakfast, which was at 10 a.m., so that's 3.5 hours later. So they were up singing, playing, do all sorts of stuff. And the general time for breakfast was 10 a.m. And what I noticed was when the breakfast was being served, there was a personal hygiene sort of routine, like washing your hands, et cetera, and the whole community would sit in a circle out in a field. And I kid you not, guys, not one person, when they received their food, not one person lifted their spoon until the last person had their food. So they waited. This is 3.5 hours in. I'm talking 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, et cetera, and everybody waited until everyone had their food in front of them before they lifted their spoon to their own mouth. That's cooperative. You understand? Because they believe that no one should eat when the other can't or doesn't have their share. You see what I'm saying? These are traditional African things that were removed from our consciousness, from our intellectual DNA. Right? And that's what colonization and deprivation and poverty and those kind of things do to people. They make you forget who you are. But let's all remember.
Mona just mentioned discipline in the chat. And a part of communication, a key part of communication is discipline and listening, right? You know, if we're not going to be open to listen and learn, you know, we're going to obviously be right in the same place that we started, or actually even worse off. So, you know, discipline, ethics, regiment, all of these things are key components of communication.
Excellent. Absolutely.
Back to you, Andre.
Yeah, no, good points there. And, you know, like it's crazy. And, you know, Farley, Roderick, you touched an important point, and it's not what you communicate, it's how, right? And we have this way of like just attacking and lashing out. And go to the owner, your food dirty and nasty and tastes bad like what? And whatever, right? So, you know, I saw a situation on Facebook. I was following this Toronto community support group, and I was so disappointed, right? And I saw the community trashing a Black-owned business in the GTA. It's a franchise. And so I went to the owner directly because I had the pleasure of meeting him at JCA, and so I got his number. And so I messaged him directly, and I took some screenshot of what people were saying on Facebook. And he asked me to respond to these people, and I did, you know, just highlighting, you know, more about the business and what they've achieved, and that they actually do have a process if you feel like the services or the food or whatever is not good enough, right? So these businesses do have a process just like any other business, right? So that constructive feedback will definitely help businesses to grow. So rather than going on social media and elsewhere and trashing the owners, try to uplift and to grow, help the owners to grow, right? I think that needs to be the approach, because like all the other businesses, we support these businesses whether or not they don't like us, whether or not they treat us badly. You know, it just becomes a thing on the media, and then it dies out, and then we continue to support them. So why is it that it's so hard to buy Black, right? So keep that in mind. So I just bring up some history here about struggling of Black businesses. And the information is mostly based on what is in the US, right? So the first one here, the last 30 years also have brought the wholesale collapse of Black-owned independent businesses and financial institutions across Black communities. So there's been a significant decline in Black businesses in the last 30 years, right? In 1985, 60 Black-owned banks were providing financial services to their communities. Today, just 23 remain, right? So 60 versus 20. That's a significant decline in Black financial institutions. In 11 states that headquartered Black-owned banks in 1994, not a single one is still in business. So all of those banks went out of business, right? And when I look back at some of the historical things that occurred that made it difficult for these institutions to survive, was the abolition of the monopoly law in the U.S., right, which effectively gave these larger white-owned institutions to buy out black businesses, right, or force them out of business, right, and form these big multinational corporation that really force out these businesses out of their communities, right. We also looked at during the civil rights movement, right. So these larger institutions, they went and they hired black professionals, right, and they paid them more than what the other black businesses. So they took away the talent from a lot of these business owners by paying these professionals more, right. And what they did during the civil rights, they said, hey, because you're working with us, if you actually went and march or protest or anything, you can actually get fired, right? So that effectively silenced a lot of people. So there were a lot of things that occurred, and I don't know if Farley, Michael, or anyone want to chime in. So looking back at the history, so there are certain things that made it harder. The destruction of Black Wall Street, and we've talked about this in previous sessions, right? Anyone want to chime in on the stats or?
Yeah, for sure. I just from a general perspective, I think it's important for us to recognize that the impact, and Rod again always says it, it's an explain game, not a blame game. And what we have to do is recognize and understand that anti-Black racism has shallowed our intellectual pool, right? So what you young people especially have to be mindful of is that it is your opportunity to refill that pool of what we call Black intelligentsia, which means we have a collection. And again, hear the word collection of Black people who are demonstrating and practicing higher intelligence in a cooperative manner so that we can regain what we've lost through the impacts and the traumas that literally all the oppression that our people have gone through. We have to be shown that we're resilient. That's why Rod and I always say, let's transition from resilience to brilliance. We've already proven we could survive the storm. Now the storm is it may still be there, obviously, to some extent, because we still have things to deal with. But during those moments of calm, what are we doing productively to make ourselves ready for things like we're hearing words like reparation and all these words? Are we actually ready to receive what we deserve? We have to do some work on our side as well. The things like flip, floss, and fly are how we're readying ourselves for when an opportunity presents itself, because luck is when preparation meets opportunity, nothing else.
Right. And I think there has to be a huge sense of intentionality when we're redefining who we are and what we're going to stand for.
Absolutely.
So, on TV, you often see these makeovers, these makeup makeovers where people turn into somebody else. So we look at it from like an internal makeover, like a social resurgence of yourself or who we are. So we intentionally have to question what is there in terms of our culture, or our habits, our behaviors, and look at in the sense of our collective nature or our collective growth, how we're going to disrupt what is there to make sure that it's beneficial for not just ourselves individually, but our communities. So again, it's gonna take research, folks. It's not gonna happen. No one's gonna give it to you on a silver platter, because what works for this mainstream society is what pretty much everybody buys into. But if it hasn't worked for us, if it's still continuing to present challenges for us, we've got to redefine, again, who we are and rewrite our narrative intentionally. All right. And again, it's not going to come easily. So if anybody wants any information on that and how to go about this, there's obviously way more conversation than it'll take to do within a 90-minute time frame. But you can reach out to ourselves and we can walk through that with you.
My little 2 cents I'd like to add, and I did say so before, that it's not necessarily your academics or your intelligence or your knowledge or your know-how, because the folks who work with anti-Blacks, the folks who are anti-Black, have far more history than us. They have far more practice in doing what they do to divide us. And I always remember the first Black justice Thurgood Marshall, the first black judge who was to sit on the Supreme Court of the US.
Yes.
When he was out in the fields doing litigation, he actually went before the Supreme Court, I think 38 times, and won 34. He was an architect that broke down the busing and the segregation of the schools. And what they did was to offer him a justice position on the bench of the Supreme Court. And all he became after that was a minority position.
Mm-hmm.
So don't presume that because you're very educated, you know everything. There is still a lot of tricks in the book that he can actually pull you out of the movement.
Michael?
Not as
That's a good point, Michael.
He was not as effective as a Supreme Court judge compared to when he was a litigator.
Mm-hmm.
And that weakened the movement. He was no longer on the streets to help those blacks who were being chastised. But when they came before the bench, his opinion, as we speak, is still a minority opinion. You can always go back and look at the cases that he sat down. It was 8-1, 8-1, 8-1 all the time. So I'm just saying to my younger folks, get the education, get the stuff, do all of these things. But do not presume that because you've got it, mean that you are insulated from still being treated and get cast into a position that they're ineffective.
Michael, one of the things we often share is that, and most people assume education and school are synonyms. They're actually not, right? Rod and I were at a meeting once, and a woman said, a sister said that school is an option, education is a must. So when we talk about education, we're not talking about what you learn in class. We talk about what you learn in life, right? So you can have individuals, especially if you look at even in the indigenous communities, a young man or woman might learn how to hunt and fish from their father and still go to school every day, but what they survive on is their knowledge of how to hunt and how to fish. So education is the holistic definition of learning, not the in-class definition, which is school. So when we talk about education, we're talking about from a spherical, holistic standpoint, meaning we understand and behave and implement knowledge. Knowledge without implementation is, as my mom would say, whatless, right? You have to implement the knowledge that you garner, and that's the evidence that you've actually learned, and it's now evolved into education. Okay.
Perfect.
So very.
I just mentioned that because I see as we speak here, Farley.
Yes.
Is movements afoot.
Yeah.
Cream the best of our people.
Yeah.
And put them in token positions that become ineffective for the movement.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very important point there, Michael. That's a good point that Michael brought up there. So if you are looking to support Black businesses, so there's the Buy Black movement, like I mentioned earlier. They actually have a website, and I have the link here. I'll show you briefly. That just walk you through, just in case you're looking or you don't know which businesses are Black owned. So they are actually going through and adding by sector, industry, whatever you want to call it, all the different Black owned businesses, right? So if you're looking for food, accessory, cleaning, etc., right, you can go to the website and you can get all the stuff there. You can support the movement, right? Personally, I'll tell you this, that the other day, and it's and I'm not saying you can't support like other businesses, and I'll give you a situation that I had the other day. I went to a Jamaican restaurant downtown, and I wanted to try their oxtail. And then my friend said to me, yo, their oxtail is $19. Why would you spend $19 on a plate of oxtail? So I said, I know it's $19, but when I go to these other big name restaurant, I never question why I'm paying $40 for a little piece of salmon or $40 for a little piece of chicken, right? So why would I question the $19 for the oxtail, right? So I think we need to have that conscious thinking as we are, talking about supporting and buying Black, because, we always try to, it may be consciously or subconsciously justify why the price is not worth it when we're supporting our own brothers and sisters. But when we're elsewhere, we just go with it, right? Oh, it's fancy, it's whatever. Right? So keep that
Andre?
in mind. Yep.
Oh, just on that point, I think, and this is again from more of an economics perspective, the reason, and I really believe that depth of understanding is key here. So the reason many of the Black businesses have to charge, as opposed to choose to charge a particular price, is because a lot of them are not buying cooperatively. Okay, so and it's very, very important. So if you're charging $19 for your oxtail, but you're buying it by yourself, meaning as an individual entity, as opposed to when you go to the big box Chinese groceries that we patronize as a people, right? And again, the money leaving our community within 6 hours, right? They all buy cooperatively. So everything you see on their shelves, they're buying with about 19 in the GTA, could be as close to 45 other entities are buying from the same distributors, right? I met with one of them the other day. So it's this, and thankfully and encouragingly, he's a Black person, right? But the reality is our businesses are buying individually. We're not thinking collectively, because if 15 restaurateurs who sell oxtail and rice and peas or whatever it is are buying from the collectively, then there's something called economies of scale. And then what will happen is the prices will go down, and they'll be part of a more beneficial supply chain in terms of the profit margins that they're generating. So not to say that we shouldn't obviously still support.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah. So those are the things we have to ensure that our young people understand before they become entrepreneurs and get into business, right? Think cooperatively. Number one thing to do in business is to think cooperatively.
And again, because today communication is our word of the day, that is going to take intentional communication to speak to other people.
100%.
Have to, come out of our little silos and then be able to see the bigger picture, and what is going to benefit us will benefit everybody. And that the collective notion, but also the communication and being intentional in that communication will open up these boxes that have been closed for centuries. And it's now up to us. And as in my culture, or my Barbadian parenting experience that I've had, we have a saying: you have a plaster for every sore. We can no longer have a Band-Aid for everything, or an excuse for everything. We now have to be intentional and make conscious choices. Make conscious choices that are going to better ourselves and the community.
Yeah. Farley, that's
Andre, before you come on. In the current financial language, even of the oppressors, they talk about that. They don't use cooperative as a term. But
I was about to say the same.
Talk about bulk buying and horizontal relationship and
strategic alliances.
Yes, strategic alliances. These are the terms they use, and that is why I always believe in the formal, when we're getting into business, do what we're doing now, the financial literacy, do the formal stuff so that you can work in any space.
Right.
Call it cooperative, they talk about strategic alliance.
Right. Yeah.
It is the same thing.
It is the same thing. Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing, Michael. So, yep.
Okay, Andre, sorry.
All right. So now let's get into and I mean, these are also unique to the community, but just generally talk about some of the things that are reasons why business fail, right? And I know it. I recognize that customer service is an issue for a lot of Black businesses, right? And I mean, it is for a lot of businesses, but poor customer service can have a detrimental impact, right? And just like Roderick says, if you're gonna address somebody, do it politely. It's funny because there's a Jamaican restaurant that I go to, and the young lady at the cashier, she always has she looks angry all the time, and she gives me attitude all the time. So I went up to her and I jokingly said, you're gonna give me attitude today, or me figure attitude first, right? And then she started laugh, and then right there and then we had a conversation, and I just started talking to her about like the time she come in and whatnot. And from that, good customer service all the time, because I broke down that barrier or whatever she was going through. I don't know, but I created a relationship with her, right? And so even if you want to give the owner feedback, just do it politely, constructively, right? But customer service, and as you're talking about business, if anyone here is wanting to be an entrepreneur, I was in Jamaica one time, and the barbers were having a conversation about customer service, and one of the barbers said, "At my shop, I can come anytime. Customer have to wait for me," right? And then another barber said, "No, man, and I saw you go, man. You have to come early so that you can trim the people in here on time or whatever." So, anyways, at the end of the discussion, I listened, and at the end of the discussion, let's say the haircut was 20 Canadian dollar. I ended up giving the barber that was arguing about good customer service $40, and I say, "Hey, thanks for the good service. It's because of the good service why I'm tipping you today," right? So customer service is extremely important. It's recognizing what the customer needs, addressing the concerns of the customer, and trying to make sure that you tailor your product and service, right? Leadership.
Valuing the customer.
Right.
And I think that's a key feature of good customer service is valuing that customer, choosing to spend their money with you, right? So in turn, you've got to basically give them that hospitality and appreciation for spending with you, right? Mm-hmm. So that is key. And then actually one of the future series that we're going to be having at the BBPA is customer service for Black businesses. So we're on the same page, my brother. Real talk.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, valuing the customer. Don't cost the customer and say, "Oh, when one gone, another one will come back." No,
exactly.
No, stop that. That is not good, right? Because that person could have potentially brought 10 people, or they could take 10 people with them or more, right? So definitely good customer service, leadership, right? So be respectful to your employee. Provide clear, communication, right? An effective leader knows how to communicate well, right? And it goes in line with the word for the day, right? You have to communicate clearly your vision, your mission, and your expectations, right? So that the people around you can understand what you're about and what the business is about. Lack of uniqueness and value. I'm going to tell you something. I'm very, and I know maybe I can get some cultural background as to why this is. But be creative in our names, our business name. Yeah. Every restaurant I go to, Island Jerk Chicken, Jamaica's Jerk, Caribbean cuisine, right? Be creative, offer some value, right? All the menus, oxtail, fried chicken, barbecue chicken. Be creative, offer some type of value in whatever it is that you're doing. Think outside of the box. If you don't know what the value is, ask the customers.
And the thing with naming a business, Andre, is the breadth of opportunity that you leave for yourself. A lot of times when you have a very acute or narrow, narrow business name, what happens is you get defined as only being able to do that. So if you're, like you said, Andre's Jerk Chicken, rice and peas with gravy restaurant, right? And then one day you try to offer a lasagna or some other cultural group of food, people are gonna be like, well, yeah, but the name is Andre's Jerk Chicken, rice and peas with gravy restaurant. Why would I buy lasagna from there?
From there, right? Good point.
Right. So when we look at the way other businesses are named, like in that have gone from, especially the ones that have grown to be franchises, like Cactus Club or Milestones or Jack Astor's or Harbor 60, none of their names give you a direct indication of what they serve. They just serve. You understand? Yeah. So I know part of our cultural marginalization, kind of leads us into wanting to say loudly who we are, right? But at the end of the day, if we want to be inclusive, right, especially in light of, if we even take anti-Black racism into play, right, you want the clan to come and buy a meal at your place. But if it's called Andre's Jerk Chicken, Rice and Peas, right, with gravy restaurant, that clan's gonna go the other direction, right? And you don't want the clan, you want their money.
Yep.
You understand?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I love good point. Jerk chicken.
I mean, we know everybody loves jerk, but you want to add some value, right? You know, I actually I call it in here, but there's this restaurant across from my workplace that I love. I love the name, I love the service, I love the food. It's the epitome of a successful Black business. It's called Roy Woods, and I support them all the time during my lunch break when I'm at work. Right, really good service, good staff, everything. Right, and so it's also creative. Right, so when you go there, you can get a jerk chicken sandwich, a barbecue chicken sandwich. You might be able to get some lasagna, but the name doesn't, just like Farley said, exclude or limit the option. Because if I'm looking for, let's say, a salad, but the sign says jerk chicken, chances are I probably won't be able to find many salad options there, even though the business probably has good salad options, right? Some of the other reasons here why business fails, so financing hurdle, and this has systemic issues embedded in it for Black entrepreneurs, right? The inability to get financing, right? There's also the whole thing about the credit score and having a healthy credit history, poor financial management or lack thereof, right? I see a lot of businesses, they're just operating. You set up a thing and you just start buy and sell things. There's no clear management of finances, so you don't have an understanding of what is coming in or what is going out, right? And because you don't have a proper financial system in place, it limits your ability to grow your business. Because Michael can attest to this, and myself as accountants, that in terms of growing a business, we rely on historical financial information to see how the business is changing over time. So having no poor financial management can lead to the eventual failure of your business. So just like with your budget, what is coming in and what is going out, you need to have a higher amount of income coming in than the expenses to have a surplus to operate, right? How to grow a business. So these are, this list is just suggestive, and it's definitely gonna vary based on the business and the industry or your unique experience, but these are some of the things that you can do. One of the things that I'll preach, don't just start a service. Don't just get up and say, oh, my side hustle, unless you really have no plans to grow the business. Make sure that you are registering the business. Start there, register the business and structure it if possible. So structure meaning identifying your team and the resources that are needed to effectively, grow the business, right? Be hands-on and show passion. I've literally come across people who rent out a space, set up this big business and leave somebody in there to run it. The business has no name, no brand awareness, nothing, but yet still you set up this entire business and you left it on its own to operate. And so that you are literally setting up yourself for failure. You need to be a part of the day-to-day of that business to help it grow, to nurture it, to help to establish the culture and the direction. So you have to be hands-on and you have to be passionate, right? I've met with people trying to form partnership with me and they're not passionate about their service. And I'll tell you, that's a turnoff for me. If you're not passionate about what you're selling, why should I be passionate about buying it? So you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Focus on the customer. It's extremely important. I am giving you my money, right? I need to be treated with respect and fairness, right? And I need to make sure that I'm getting value. So you have to focus on the customer. And in business, we call it the value proposition. What is it that you're offering that creates value for the customer, right? So become more competitive. It's one thing to just set up a restaurant and call it Island Jerk, but what is it that you're doing to make your jerk experience, and I don't mean, no pun intended there, what is it that you're doing to make your jerk experience better than the other businesses in that industry, right? Set targets, measure yourself so that you can see whether or not you're successful, all right? A target could be in year one, I wanna sell, I don't know, 5,000 boxes of small chicken. Now in year two, at the end of year one, you ask yourself, did I sell 5,000 boxes of chicken? If you didn't sell, why didn't I? Perhaps you can get feedback from the customers by doing a survey. Did you buy any jerk chicken? Why didn't you? Why did you choose something else on the menu? You probably get some feedback. The customer might say, hey, the chicken is too salty, or I didn't like this, or I didn't like that, right? So that is how you're gonna measure and grow your business. So these are some general tips here, but there are other things that you can definitely do to grow your business. in terms of registering a business, so these are some of the steps involved in registering the business, right? So creating a business plan. And we've said this in one of the previous sessions. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So a business plan, literally on a high level, goes through all the things that you need to do in order to get your business up and going, right? And it serves as your Bible. It is what you're gonna look at to see if you're going in the right direction. However, the circumstances might change and you might need to change your plan. It just gives you that direction though. So you need to have a plan. And even if you're looking for funding, if you want to go to a bank for funding, you're gonna need a plan. I think it seems like Farley, you wanted to say something here?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Sorry, Roger.
Yeah. Us black people all look alike.
I know, right?
Again, that the BBPA is here to serve the community in that regard. So registering a business, setting up a business, putting together a business plan, these are all things that the BBPA is there to do and that we do on a daily basis. And you know, to be a member, these are some of the benefits you would get in doing so. And thank you for the people from this format who have come on and become members at the BBPA. And again, reach out to us, communicate with us, allow us to know what you need, and we'll be there to help you get that done. So back to you, Andre.
Yeah, of course, 100%.
Nice.
And you know, come up with the business name. So probably instead of creating a business name called, I don't know, like Island Jerk or whatever, I'm not, you know, listing any business, but perhaps you can come up with Urban Cafe, right? You know, something that's more modern and inclusive, right? You know, it doesn't always have to be about
Urban Restaurant Solutions.
Exactly. Jerk chicken is not a value proposition. I mean, it is actually, but it doesn't have to always be about jerk chicken or island spices and the Caribbean. You know, you can come up with other things and still make a name for yourself.
You know, I guess
for business permits, right? So you need to. One of the things that you have to do is a legal analysis of your business to see what are the requirements that you need to meet to operate without any lawsuit or any fines or penalty, right? So you definitely need to look into that. So if you're opening a restaurant or hair care salon, whatever, you definitely need permits for those industries, right? So you definitely want to do some type of analysis there to make sure that you're following those guidelines, right? And yep, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to say, you know, when you look at some of the businesses that our people patronize, in terms of like beauty supply locations, et cetera, you know, the imagery and the marketing, it tells you what they do, but the name definitely doesn't always, right? So,
right.
So those of you who patronize those types of businesses, take a look when you see the name of a business. With our restaurant that we had, we called it Fuse. The reason we called it Fuse is we wanted to send the message of integration, right? Because you can fuse any two things together and come out with something new. You understand? So same sort of thing. Just be a little more open-minded, and as opposed to the closed-minded, and think from an open-ended standpoint. Because the more open-ended a proposition is, the more people that are going to be curious about it. Right? That's basically what you want to do in terms of sales.
Yeah, precisely. And another thing too. I mean, you can do it this way if you want, but I think it's also it's not creative. What I see, well, I wouldn't recommend this way, but. Another thing I don't like is when I go and I see you'll see Jane Street Jerk Chicken. I always ask myself the question, so what happens if the business has to relocate?
Not only relocate, expand.
Or expand. Are you going to call all of them Jane Street Jerk?
Western Road.
That's one of the big problems. Yeah, it's you know, what we have to be mindful of is there's an element of deprivation in us because we've been a deprived people. But that's why I always stress, we have to go beyond, in terms of our history, go beyond slavery. Slavery is just a speed bump in our existence. How fast were we going before that speed bump? That's where we got to go back. Then when I bring up Wakanda, I'll do it forever and ever. Wakanda represents the undisrupted pre-speed bump existence of Black people. Right? So we have to look at ourselves from that perspective and think more broadly, more confidently, more collaboratively, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what will get us to that ultimate destination of fulfilling our potential.
100%. Somebody has something to say?
A question. I wasn't able to write down everything on the. Oh, Can you show the slide on how to grow a business again, just for like 1 minute? I didn't finish
Sure.
writing down what you wrote on the slide. Thank you.
Remember that saved, eh?
Yeah. All of the sessions that we're doing at Flip, Floss, and Fly are on the BBPA website, so you can go and revisit those and watch as many times as you want, and obviously share the links with the community that hasn't had the opportunity to get on.
And take notes at your own speed with no time constraints.
I had somebody ask me a question because I was talking about the program to one of my friends, but she's unable to be there at the time. Okay. And she was wondering if you want to see, if you want to look at the recordings of.
Yep. You go on to BBPA. Yeah, you froze a little bit there. You go on to bbpa.org and.
You need to remember.
Yeah, you're breaking up there and having a little bit of a technical.
The question was, do you need to be a member to access it? The answer is no.
Correct.
Okay.
But we rather you be a member because there just might be a little perk in there somewhere.
All right. So.
Oh, and I didn't finish writing down. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of registering a business, I didn't put an hyperlink here, but I'll just show you quickly. So there's the you can go to registering a business in Ontario.
The other thing, was that Monica speaking before?
Yes.
Yeah. Monica, you can also, remember you can take a screenshot as well. Do you know how to do that on your computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anything that you intend to write down, and if the pacing doesn't accommodate your speed, how fast you write it, I see. But I sent you a couple of direct messages in the chat, actually. I don't know if you saw them yet. Right, but you're writing copious notes and you're gonna miss certain things. Just take a screenshot and you can go back later and revisit what your screenshot images are on your desktop, and you get all the content you feel you missed that you. But I asked you if you can respond to a couple of the direct chat questions I had for you regarding Say It Loud. So that's way up from like the first half hour. So I can.
Okay.
Okay, so try to respond to those for me. Okay.
Ali, I sent you a question too directly, if you can look at. Thank you.
I will, absolutely. And who's that just spoke, please?
That was
Antonia. It's Antonia.
Right. Okay, thank you. I'm on it right now.
All right, good stuff. So yeah, so this is, if you want to register your business, you can go to the Ontario website. So what you'll see is different forms of businesses, which we're going to talk about them. In our next presentation next week. So we'll talk about what is a sole proprietorship, what is a corporation, and we'll talk about the implications of each of these forms of business. And I think it's also important that we bring into the discussion some of the things like strategic alliances, what that means, what are the advantages, how do you go about it, right? The different ways that businesses can work together to grow rather than trying to do it on your own, right? So we're going to take the language that is used in that the community understands, and then we're going to translate that into the business world, right? So that you understand both from a community perspective as well as from the business perspective, so that you can engage. If you go into a financial institution and they say, do you have any strategic alliances, that you fully understand what that means, right? I believe Camille is going to share a survey about it's a survey about financial literacy to see how can we reach the community to deliver effective financial literacy session. If you want, it's up to you. It's optional to complete that survey, but it will definitely give us. And I think Marlene had a lot of questions about how we can work together as a community to deliver financial literacy. So if you have a moment, you can copy that link and do the survey that Camille is going to be sending out. But that is it for today's discussion. So this is to set the pace in terms of business. So we're going to have some more conversation about business and different types of business, different types of alliances, financing a business, and how to effectively operate a business, because that is important. So I'll take any questions if there are any.
Yeah. So while people are getting together their questions, we're going to introduce the president of the BBPA, Miss Nadine Spencer. She's got some information to share with us today. Nadine, are you there with us?
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Nadine Spencer.
Okay, I've been dying to meet this person. Okay.
Also known as Fabulous and Brilliant, Farley.
All right.
Oh, now that's what I know you as. Miss Brilliant. Okay. I was wondering if it was the same person.
Oh, it's so great to see everybody. So good morning, everyone. You know, I listen to these sessions and I just sit back and listen because I think part of learning is just sitting back and just listening as well. Because you hear, when you're not participating, you really hear the conversation in a different way. And I'm really pleased. I am so very pleased. I will be bringing our executor from the Donald Reed estate back on because this was the intention of the program. And, you know, I'm sure Michael will weigh in as well. The BBPA, we're very pleased at the dialogue and the conversation. We'll be pulling sound bites out of this just to add to our promotion and our marketing and the awareness, because I think, you know, this is a program that everybody across Canada globally should know about because the dialogue has been so incredible. So I want to thank you, Farley, Roderick, Andre, and all the participants. I want to thank you all for these amazing Saturday morning conversations. So I'm here this morning to talk to you a little bit about a project that I'm working on, which is near and dear to my heart. Say It Loud is an awesome initiative, and you're experiencing the financial literacy part of Say It Loud, but I don't know if you're all aware that Say It Loud is actually a national campaign for Black youth. And it's to really instill and promote Black pride, which is what we're doing here. And there's going to be a contest. We don't like to say contest, but there's an initiative to participate, but there is a prize in Ottawa. You'll win a trip to Ottawa for two. And the prize value is $25,000, spread over 8 categories of individuals who will get the opportunity to go show their skill set in 8 categories. And those 8 categories are, Roderick and Farley, help me. What are the 8 categories?
8 categories of Say It Loud Canada are entrepreneurship, right?
Technology.
So that's science, technology, and engineering and math. So we call it STEM, but yes, right?
Yeah.
Farley, you gonna chime in there?
So it's technology, entrepreneurship, social innovation, literary, culinary, visual, performance, and fashion arts are the 8 categories. The reason we chose those categories is because they individually and collectively, again, did what we call debunk or disrupt or eradicate or mitigate the negative stereotypes that Black youth and Black people have been portrayed through media through media. So generally speaking, if you're from Mars and you're thinking about visiting this place called Earth, and you get into one section on Black people, you would assume from the media that all we do is play basketball, rhyme in hip hop, and commit street crimes. And that's not who we are. It's never been who we are. And what we want to do with Say It Loud is celebrate the brilliance, and again, the transition from resilience to brilliance of Black youth, right, in these areas of excellence, right, so that we can change that negative stereotype from within and without.
So I'm going to be writing those down in the chat. Anybody's interested, please do chime in and actually visit us at sayitloudcanada.com or also on Instagram at sayitloudcanada. Back to you, Nadine.
Yeah, thank you. And so if you go on to Instagram now at Say It Loud Canada, and follow the page, like the page. For all the participants today who comes on and follow and like the page, you will be entered into a draw for one awesome prize that will be given out next week. And that prize is a $100 gift card to OVO. So you want to follow the page. I'm on Instagram right now, and it's Say It Loud Canada. And also have a look at the video submissions. You are able to submit a video in one of the 8 categories to get an opportunity to participate and go to Ottawa for the grand finale of showcasing your talent, your skill set, your brilliance at the Black Youth Summit in February 2020. And Farley, tell them a little bit about the significance of 2021.
Absolutely.
2021 February.
So February 2021 just happens to be the 25th anniversary of the celebration of Black History Month in Canada. I also want to emphasize that the prizing is the perpetuity of support that you're going to get in terms of business plan writing, grant writing, image consultation, public speaking training, We have a mental wellness, an anonymous mental wellness support mechanism. All of these things will be available to participants and ideally beyond, but we're starting with the participants. So you're going to get much more than just what we call a quote unquote prize. You're going to get functional, applicable tools to move your career forward in the area that you've expressed through passion, as Andre said earlier. I also want to share with everyone a little known transpiration that happened this week. I was the keynote speaker at an international conference for the African Union at 4 a.m., I might add, because it took place at 10 a.m. in South Africa. So at 4 a.m., I had 20 minutes to speak, and I gave full representation, not just to Say It Loud, but to Flip, Floss, and Fly, the BBPA, our company, Urban Resolutions, of course. A little self-grandiosity is not a bad thing. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. We're actually global in terms of awareness now. The entire African diaspora, including kings, queens, members of parliament, etc., now know about Flip, Floss, and Fly, Say It Loud, and all the other initiatives that we're involved with. So be part of something. You know, at the end of the day, you want to be part of something that cares about you and that you can care about.
Absolutely. Farley, there's a few questions, or Roderick, there's a few questions in the chat pertaining to the Say It Loud Ottawa initiative. Can you just answer those questions for the individuals, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just putting in our categories here. Okay, so a couple questions. Okay, let's go. If they're available, is this available to nonprofit startup business? Absolutely. I'm assuming that you're speaking about Say It Loud, or just some of the
yes, the Say It Loud opportunity I'm speaking.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. We should have said, I mean, and everybody's a youth at heart, but you know, it's specifically for people between 14 and 29, but that does not exclude people who may be older or younger in terms of being able to collectively work with somebody within that age range to be able to qualify or to be eligible for the Say It Loud initiative.
Yeah, so what Rod's saying there, I just want to expound on that a little. So if you are outside of the age category, but you have someone within the age category that is working with you on the project, that deems you eligible. Okay, so be mindful of that. When we receive, whether it be funding or guidelines from any partners, we look at things as moving the entire Black race forward. The marketing and the targeting may appear to be narrow, but just understand when we're talking about the BBPA, Urban Resolutions, Say It Loud, Flip, Floss, and Fly, all the initiatives that we share with you guys are to move the entire race forward, both vertically and laterally. Okay, so be mindful of that and always ask questions like you just asked. So kudos on that as well.
Yeah, and everyone, I just want to say I'm here on Instagram Live. So if you're able to go on Instagram now, and you can say hello to me there, and also like and follow the page, and just let us know, hashtag Flip, Floss, and Fly. So that way I know that you joined in from this platform, and your name will be entered into the OVO gift certificate for this week. But we'd also like you to go to the website and to participate in the opportunity to go to Ottawa in February 2021 to showcase your Black pride, as we Say It Loud. So sign on. I can see everybody waving. Thank you. I see you, Faith. Hello. So continue to visit the page, and we will pull the names out, and the draw will happen next week.
Yeah, we can do it right here. Flip, Floss, and Fly. Why not? Let's do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other key thing, guys, is we all have to be ambassadors of our collective purpose. Okay, so there's no siloism and all those things. We don't want to be in silos. We want to drink Milo. You know what I mean? Like, so let's be real. Like, every time you see an opportunity that can move our race forward, participate, ask questions, tell a friend to tell a friend. That's how we grow. Okay?
Yeah. And lastly, the most important thing is that, I think, when we talk about collective unity, it's really about collaboration. When you talk about that 6 hours, it's really disappointing to hear actually that for, we all know how hard it is to work, earn, and keep our monies. And to hear that in our community, it's only 6 hours, we have to be intentional about how we change that so we can rewrite the narrative. So let's really think about that and be intentional. I'm looking, last week I heard you guys talk about that there's gonna be some Louis Armstrong as the out song today.
That's
So
correct.
that's,
Nadine, you're reading my mind.
no. Michael will be doing Louis Armstrong, and Michael, we waited all week with bated breath to hear Louis Armstrong. Next week I'll do something. You know, I'm always ready, Farley.
And Nadine, I just wanted to say you look both Zoom and Instagram live ready. So that's a dual.
Thank you, Farley.
My president, can you help me out this week? I should have been prepared, but I promise I will be prepared for next week. I want to give you the full Louis Armstrong, not just a little bit, so.
Michael, I don't know if you know the old accounting adage that says accountants never have excuses.
No, I just make adjustment. I'm adjusting it. Been adjusted from this week to next week.
Well, many people on this call know that Nadine is my vocal student. So Nadine,
yes.
I will challenge you now to offer us one of your favorite songs from years gone by. I know you're somewhat nostalgic in the nature of the music that you tend to share. So why don't you,
Andre?
Farley, no, Roderick, thank you. I will lead in, Farley. I'm always ready to start. So everybody, as you know, I'm not a singer, but no, thank you, Roderick. But what counts here?
The waiver, Andre, responsible.
Sometimes in life, it is the attitude and the confidence and just the ability. It doesn't have to be perfect. I always say and I see Ove here, who's in our BBPA Boss Women Training Program. And what are the things I say? Take the risk. It doesn't have to be perfect. But when you're with people who support and love you, that you can always take the risk. And I know that our community here of 37 people will support me knowing that it's not perfect. I've got a little bit of a scratchy throat. I'm not a singer, but that's okay. My intention is good. So today's song, I'll do probably 2 or 3 lines because I wasn't prepared because I was counting on Michael. It will be...
We balance each other, my dear. You say your 2 and 3 lines.
Darling.
Actually, you know what? Can I make a suggestion? Nadine just recently set up a little studio in her office that I helped set it up. And she was doing some spoken word. Let's try a little bit of that spoken word. One of those poems that there, Nadine. And I think that may resonate.
But I'll do the song. I'm going to start the song, and Michael's going to finish the song.
I'm going to give you a Bob Marley to get started.
Okay.
All right.
I will never get the powers to abolish. Run, come, crucify the dread. Time alone, time will tell. Think you're in heaven, but you're living in hell. Think you're in heaven, but you're living in hell. Think you're in heaven, but you're living in hell. Time alone, time will tell. That's one of my favorite Bob Marley's.
Michael, you're amazing.
You, Michael.
Awesome.
Man, I just shared something with you. If you could play it after this, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so so Nadine, back to you. I'd love to hear a few choice notes from you, or the spoken word. Either one is good.
I'll do the notes because I'm not ready with my spoken word today, Roderick. I know that's what you want me to do. So it's not perfect, but I'm going to do it. No, it's the greatest love of all.
Okay, there we go.
I believe.
Tough song.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter reminds us how we used to be.
Beautifully done. Good girl.
All right.
Good stuff.
So the lessons are paying off, although I haven't received my check
I try to apply the technique, Farley. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Please apply the check while you apply the technique. Because
all right, you know what, okay.
You've left everybody speechless. I mean, I think.
As opposed to leaving everybody on mute, which is
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. That's the thing. Do never be afraid. Never.
So speaking of never being afraid, Rod's gonna play a song. As you guys know, I manage recording artists. There's a young man I manage named Ryan Douglas, and he's got a classmate named Teresa. Well, schoolmate actually. She's older than he is. Named Teresa Prado, and we recorded a cover song actually the other night that I want to share with you guys, just to give you a taste of what else we do in here in the universe of entrepreneurship. Rod B in the place to be. Lady, you're gonna love this.
All right.
Blamed it on heartache, blamed it on you. I blamed it on mistakes and your empty truths. Now I can't even wade in the water, I'm in too deep to move. Love is so painful, you're born to lose. I wasn't looking for another, but I can't help but wonder. It was a one-way track. Why don't you love me back? Why'd your temptation crack over the truth? Thought you could fill the gap. Thought I would run right back. I didn't pick this mess. I wouldn't choose. Blame it on you.
I blamed it on secrets and words left unsaid. I blamed it on weakness and the voice in my head. Scared to be left in the shadow, I'm overtaken by fear. Love is so painful when you're not here.
I wasn't looking for another,
but I can't
help but wonder.
It was a one-way track. Why don't you love me back? Why'd your temptation crack over the truth? You thought you could fill the gaps. Thought you could run like I didn't pick this mess. I wouldn't choose. I'm all in my feelings, I'm so vulnerable. Got so many questions about all of the wrong I do. Oh, I do.
It was a one-way track. Why don't you love me back? Why'd your temptation crack over the truth? Thought you could fill the gaps. Thought I would run right back. I didn't pick this mess. I wouldn't choose. To blame it on you.
All right.
Yeah, we're mixing that tonight, actually.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing.
So the young man is 16 years old. The young lady, her name's Teresa Prado. The young man's name is Ryan Douglas. She's 18. She's in grade 12. He's in grade 11 now. But yeah, two talented young people in our community, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely amazing.
All right.
So Michael, that's what you have to live up to next week, just to let you know.
Listen, they can't see me. I'm from the country of Bolt.
All right.
I'll be way ahead of the game next week.
Attaboy.
So on that note, we are going to say our farewells for this week. Don't forget that the word of the week, not just the day, is communication. And just to go back on what that means from our perspective, message sent, message received, and message understood. Okay, so make that extra effort. And remember, folks, this journey that we're on is going to take patience. And, we've come a long way in terms of our experience here on these lands. And we've got a long way to go, but we've definitely got to be patient with ourselves, and we've got to be patient with each other to get to that, not to that destination, because there is no final destination, but we're moving in the right direction. And to have our community on a path that is going to reflect the excellence and the not just the resilience, but the brilliance that we are of, we definitely have to be patient with ourselves and to relearn a new way. So let's get it going from now. There's no time to wait, debate, or procrastinate. A second from now is too late. On that note, Farley Flex, any parting words?
Yes, I just want to remind folks to stay positive, stay passionate, be in pursuit of the fulfillment of your potential. We will do a 7C recap in one of these episodes, or one of these sessions coming forth. And again, just go with strength, go with positivity. Check out those two books I've been recommending: Cast by Isabel Wilkinson and Collective Courage by Miss Nemhard, and I can't remember her first name now, but Collective Courage and Cast, two incredible books that will move you forward personally and collectively.
Okay, Miss Nadine Spencer, any final words from the BBPA?
Have an awesome week. Remember, everything is possible. Take the risk, always show up.
Okay. Our brother, our elder, Michael Pinnock, any final words for the week? Any words of wisdom?
It's good to be alive at this moment in time.
All right.
Greatest moment in time is now.
That being said, no more talk, just action. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to tell a friend to be with us here every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Flip, Floss, and Fly, the financial literacy program that speaks the language of the community. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.